everyone. So I am doing my end of the month wrap up for September. Wow, I can't believe it's the end of September. We are now hitting October, officially spooky month, which is always funny because it's always the last day of the month. So for me, I went and read toward the beginning of this September. This one here, it looked kind of like different, it was like I was looking up a specific trope to try to find a video to do, and I ended up coming across this one here that's called The Bully's Milky Roommate. It sounds ridiculous. By Jade Swallow. That's definitely a fake name. So I gave this 4 stars. I actually thought it was pretty decent. I thought it was pretty good. There were, some like silly things in it too that I was like, but I'll just say I enjoyed myself reading it. So we got the characters of Brian and Katie. So the tropes are breeding kink, lactation kink, plus size heroine, and also it's like, would you say bully romance? But I'm like, see, there's a difference between being bullied versus teased. There is a difference. People will think, oh, this person's bullying you. And I'm like, no, that person's teasing you. The person's teasing you. You just can't take the joke. There is a difference. When being bullied is a completely different thing. This person's making your life like a living hell. They're possibly abusing you, like physically abusing you. That's like bullying. There are differences between it. So some people I think are just too sensitive and they need to, like, I don't know, get some balls. I mean, just, like there was a point where I was being bullied in school, and it got to it got to where once I moved, things were way better for me. I would have never gone back to that school because I hated those kids. And I was being bullied by this one boy, and he would go and do like, what are they called again? Spitballs. Like he'd have like a straw, and he would go and like wad up some paper with his spit and then go and like hit it at me. He would hit me with spitballs and different things like that. So like that's bullying. Like someone who's physically doing something to you, that's bullying. Where someone's teasing you, it's a totally different thing. So anyways, so the content warning in here, I would say these characters are newly 18, and that was my biggest issue I had with this, is they were so young. They were just 18. I'm talking about, these are characters that are in high school still. And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable with that aspect. With them being 18, they're newly 18. To me, in my eyes, they're still children, even though under the law, 18 is considered adult. I really don't like the age of 18 being an adult. I prefer if the age went up. I would prefer if it was like 21. If you can't drink until you're 21, the age of like legality should be 21. It should not be 18. It's just, I find it, because you're still a teenager. So it's like, it's creepy. And then like the brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25. So to me, it's like, at least have it to where you're 21, at least. All states should be 21. I don't think they should be 18, personally. So I said, so a very young age to have these types of kinks. I think if you're doing a breeding kink or if you're doing a lactation kink, which there's no shame in that, I think you probably should be older to have those types of kinks, like maybe in your 30s, 25, 30, around there. Whenever you have that that need to breed, I guess you could say. Like, you know, when with me, I was in my late 20s when I started to have that, like, oh, I want to have kids one day. Yeah, it's like that biological clock. Men can have that too. Can have that like biological clock where they want to have children, you know? Anyways, so Katie is lucky to be going to like this high school academy. It's obviously for people with wealth. So she's trying to deal with Brian Livingston, who bullies her and nicknamed her Cupcake. So what she really doesn't know is the fact that Brian is crazy about her. And when Katie came to the school, he had asked her out and she said no. So he has been teasing her ever since as a way of getting back at her. So a mix-up in the computer system has Katie being roommates with Brian for a few months. Katie is horrified by this because he is her bully. Plus, due to hormones, Katie has been lactating from her breasts. She has to use a breast pump to help with relieving the swelling. So one day, Brian accidentally sees Katie using a breast pump and it, you know, turns him on. So he decides to blackmail her and says that he will keep her secret, but she needs to let him milk her with his mouth. So I'll just say that. Yeah, like I said, it was enjoyable. Like if you're looking for a specific kink, this will probably, you know, like solve your problem. You know, if you're looking for a specific, you know. But as a romance, I would say, you know, it might have some issues. You might have some issues with it, like as a romance. Because like I said, these characters are like newly 18 and they're in high school. And I had, there was several issues that I would say like, this doesn't make sense. So I said I did enjoy this novella, and that's the other thing. It was a novella, so it was really quickly. But I think what would have made this a 5-star for me would have been, one, if the characters were older than 18. It felt creepy for them to still be in high school. I would have felt better if the characters were in their last year of college, like 21, 22, or even 25. Like I said, 30 possibly too. Like you could have that like type of kink. 18 feels way too young, in my opinion, to be having these types of kinks in the bedroom. 2, some of the dialogue during the sex scenes felt cringy to me, especially when the hero was talking to her about wanting to impregnate her. And I was like, oh, dude, no, you're 18. I said, nothing wrong with that kink, but again, I would have preferred if both of the characters were older. Like I said, 25, 30, then you can have those kinks. Then you can be like, oh, I want to like knock this girl up, you know? I want to knock her up. And if she's into the kink, there you go, you know? Like there's a whole reason why in the adult industry, there's a section that is for that, you know, like seeing the guys, you know what, in her, you know who, you know, that type of thing. There is a kink for that. And like I said, there's no shame in it. I would just would have preferred if these characters were older when they had that kink, you know? So number 3, the heroine believing the hero was bullying her when all he was doing was teasing her. If it was other students in the school that actually were bullying her over her weight, you know, yeah, it was the other students. Like the other kids in the school were basically calling her fat, and he would actually like defend her and say, hey, you don't be calling her that. You know, if I want to pick on her, it's my right to pick on her, but you don't say anything to her. You don't pick on her. And I was like, yeah, I mean, to me, I'm like, if it was bullying, you know, like she would be getting it from all sides, you know? And the fact that he was protecting her from the other kids that were calling her fat, they were saying that she was fat. He was like, no, you're not doing that. He liked that she was curvy. So, you know, he liked that. He was into that. And so there's a difference between teasing versus bullying. If the heroine has such an issue with her weight, then she needs to address the issue and work on losing weight so she feels more confident in herself. And that's the biggest thing. It's like, if you are overweight, I'm overweight. I'm currently working on losing weight. I've lost about 30 pounds, 35 pounds right now. I still need more weight to lose. I still want to lose a good 60, 70 pounds around there. I would prefer if I lost a good 60, 70 pounds. That way my face is thinner, I have less jiggling in my arms, my thighs are thinner, that type of thing. Also for my health, that's what I have to work on is if I can get to where I don't have diabetes anymore, that would be great, because diabetes sucks, and having to take medication every day, it sucks. So this is why I would tell people, if you're young, don't get fat, don't get heavy, because it really will catch up to you as you get older, and you're going to have to take a bunch of medication. So that's why I would say to people, like, it's okay to be a little bit overweight. That's probably more of a healthier thing than, say, being underweight. Being underweight, you might have more health issues maybe if you're like too skinny. So that's why I would say to like somebody, if you're young, work on yourself, work on your body, get fit, like even if, say, because not everybody's size is different. Like I knew girls who were what you would say big bone. You say the term big bone, but it's obviously they're not big boned. They just have a bigger stature, and there's a difference between someone who has like, they're just physically bigger, like in size, but it has nothing to do with them being fat. They're made that way. It depends on your genes, So this one girl I knew, she was big. Like she could be like a linebacker in football. That's how big she was. And so there's different people who are sized differently. With those individuals, they still have to watch their weight because they could balloon up. When people are like really short, like say if you're 5 foot, if you pack on 10 pounds or 20 pounds, it will look heavier on you as a shorter person than someone who's taller. Someone who's taller, they may be drastically more overweight than this person, but it doesn't show on them. So, to me, it's like, it depends on how you're born, like your body shape and everything like that. Like you can be a little heavier and be okay. Where other people, no, if you're 600 pounds, you need to lose weight, because you're way overweight. So with her, she had a little bit of chunkiness to her, but I wouldn't say she wasn't 600 pounds. If you're 600 pounds, you're like extremely overweight, you're extremely overweight. You could be curvy, you can be plus size, but not being, unhealthy. So there is a difference between people. Like there's this one creator I keep seeing, and then I'm like, oh God, people stop showing this person, because the more they get likes and attention, the more they're going to do extreme things to their body. And when I think they're hurting themselves and they're going to die, they are going to expire. He was showing himself eating a whole bowl of Oreos and milk. No, that is not the type of obesity we need to be promoting. Is that he's going to die. He will die if he keeps going down that road. He will expire at a young age. I've seen how many of these plus size activists who have died because they keep promoting, oh, you could eat whatever you want. You can eat whatever you want within limitations. Moderation is key. Like I still eat sweets. Do I gorge on them? No. Do I eat a whole bowl of chocolate? No. I eat a little bit of it at a time. So I get my sugar craving and that's it. I don't go over what I'm supposed to be going over. There is a freaking difference. So I do get annoyed with people who are like within the fat activists and all that stuff. And they're just like, you're this, you're that. And I'm like, you're going to kill yourself. You are going to kill yourself. You're going to die at a young age. It's self-inflicted at this point. You are harming yourself. So like I said, when it comes to her, she could easily go to the gym and start working out. You will build muscle tone. You'll build tone. You'll tone up your body, you know, and do that. And like I said, you could still enjoy sweets. Like the reason why the hero called her Cupcake is because he saw her eating a cupcake one day. And so she thought, oh, it's because he's bullying me and that's why he calls me Cupcake. And it's like, no, he calls her Cupcake because he thinks she's sweet. That's why he's calling her Cupcake. So there's a difference, you know. You could eat cupcakes, you could eat cake, just moderation. A little bit, you know, maybe eat a cupcake that day, not the whole entire thing, you know, not the whole entire like 6-pack of cupcakes you bought from the store, you know, that type of thing. So for her, I was like, if she needed that confidence boost, working out gives you that confidence boost. I feel better once I've gone for a walk every day. I do this stuff. I feel better about myself when I do that. So for the hero barely knowing the heroine, and he is talking to her about one day getting married and having babies with her, I was like, oh, dude, you're going too fast. Slow down. You know, pump the brakes, man. Pump the brakes. Again, I felt like he was too young to be having those types of conversations. It felt more like a conversation that like a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old would make, you know, that type of thing, having with each other, not 18-year-olds. Like I said, the 18 age really got to me, and I would have been like, please, let's be older. So number 5, I highly, highly doubt that a computer system would mess up to where it was confusing the name Brian with a female name. It was Bryan. Brian. It's not Brianna. Brian. So how does the computer system mess up? That to me, I was like, are you kidding me? No, that's fake. That's fake. That would not happen. Also, because there isn't any type of parental supervision at the school. Just the staff watching out for them. So even if there was a mix-up, there's no way I could see the academy staff allowing hormonal teenagers of the opposite sex being roommates with each other. I said that would be a very inept school and staff to allow that. Like, if you're staff, you're supposed to be watching out for these children because their parents are paying a lot of money for your child to be at this academy. I would assume that, and you know, I'm not a rich person, so I don't know, but I'm assuming when it comes to these academies, they have them sectioned off by dorms. You got the female dorm and the male dorm. They're not going to be confused. You're not going to go and be like, oh, because of this, we're going to have this male. We know it's a male. Go over here until we can figure things. No. If they have to, they would have probably another person and have 3 people to a room instead of 2 people to a room. So to me, it felt very like this is not going to happen. Like this no way would happen at a real academy. You're paying thousands of dollars for your child to go to this private academy. It's not like it's a public school. There's no way that would happen. You know, like there was like, things were very far-fetched to me. So I still enjoyed it though, but yeah, there were a lot of things to it that I was like, this is very far-fetched, you know? So the next book I ended up reading, this was a whole series I ended up delving into, and I was actually shocked. That I really liked this whole series, with the exception of like the last book. I'll just say that. So this series is The Kings of Mafia. So the first book is Tempted by the Devil by Michelle Hurd. I read this whole series and I really enjoyed it. So the first one I gave it 5 stars. So we got the characters of Angelo Rizzo, he's 34, and Victoria. It's not Victoria, it's Vittoria, 2 T's. She goes by Tori. Her last name's Romano. She's 23. All of them have it to where the males are older and the females are younger. So the trope is age gap, forced marriage, mafia, and she's a virgin heroine. So the content warnings in here is domestic violence and abuse, murder, torture, and there's also gun violence. So Giorgio, her stepbrother, is a part of the Costa Nostra community. Tori's family, the Romanos, have been a part of the mafia world for years, and then when she's 16, her life is shattered when her beloved father and stepmother die unexpectedly. Her older stepbrother, Giorgio, takes over as head of the family, but he becomes a monster to Tori. For years, she has been living with his outbursts and cruelty. As soon as things don't go right for him, he physically takes it out on her. He abuses her. She gets physically abused by him. He beats the crap out of her. Now that Tori is 23, she's trying to hold on as long as she can, because once she's 25, she'll get an inheritance. So unbeknownst to her, though, her shitty stepbrother wants her inheritance as well, because he spends a lot of money. So Tori's only solace is cooking and going to church. That's like her only thing that she has for herself, is going to church and helping out there. And, you know, she's very like religious too. Especially when it comes to, I believe it's Catholicism. They're Catholic. I think most Italians are Catholic. And so for them, it's like going to the confessional. I don't know if Christians do that too. See, because I'm not all in with the religion. But I believe it's Catholics. It's, you know, like they have to confess their sins a lot. Catholicism runs in my family. Like, my mother's Catholic. I don't consider myself Catholic because, you know, I don't follow the faith. But my mom's Catholic. And, you know, my whole grandparents were Catholic. Great-grandparents were Catholic. That's the faith they followed. You know, like going communion, all that other stuff. So with her, she does, like, she tries to confess her sins to the, you know, the father. The priest. So one night, Tori and Giorgio go out to dinner at a restaurant owned by a mafia boss named Angelo Rizzo. So after Tori goes to the bathroom, she accidentally sees Angelo stab a man in the throat. Oh, that was brutal. He was definitely brutal. She sees the guy stab him in the throat, and so she's like, oh, you know, like how like she does like that thing, and so they see her. They see that she had witnessed him killing somebody. So terrified, she ends up making a sound, and Angelo sets his sights on her. He sees her. You know, now he physically sees her, and she's like terrified he's going to kill her or kill like her family and stuff like that. So Angelo controls his businesses with an iron fist. If people go against him, he deals with it. Giorgio Romano is someone Angelo doesn't give a crap about, and has caused problems for Angelo with Giorgio's uncontrollable gambling. So Angelo gets him alone, and Giorgio offers up his stepsister's virginity in order as payment for like the $300,000. Yeah, Giorgio's like, oh, you could go and you have my stepsister's virginity as payment. What a prick, right? But there's something he sees in Vittoria's eyes, and he can't get her out of his head. The more he thinks about her, the more he's convinced himself that instead he's going to marry her. But he doesn't tell Giorgio that. He doesn't tell Giorgio, hey, I'm going to marry your stepsister. I loved it. I was like, yes, dude. Yes, get her away from that prick. So Tori is forced to marry Angelo, and she thinks her life is over, but that quickly changes when she realizes that Angelo's very sweet and devoted to her. I was like, thank you. She needed somebody to treat her so well, because she was treated like dog shit for years. And I'm like, oh, please be good to her. Please be good to... And he was so good to her. He was so good to her. So the more they're around each other, the more they fall in love. So that to me was like very sweet. That's why I ended up giving it 5 stars, because I was like, thank you. I really needed somebody to like protect her and take care of her because she was such a sweet girl. And what Giorgio did to her was fucking vile. So I said, I'm not a huge fan of Mafia because I'm not a fan of the illegal elements, but I overlooked it in this book. I said I loved how Angelo treated Vittoria. He also kept calling her by her full name instead of her nickname. Like, he would call her Vittoria. Like, she's like, oh, you call me Tori? And he's like, no, I'm going to call you Vittoria. And so I also loved how brutal he was in this as well. And what he did to Giorgio was chef's kiss. I loved what he did to Giorgio. I'll just say that because I'm like I said, I'm not really into Mafia, but if it's going to be a Mafia book, that man better be ruthless. He better be like tough as nails but sweet and soft to the heroine. Like, he's devoted to the heroine. That's what I want to see with a Mafia, you know? I don't want to see a guy who's like very cold and like unfeeling in front of the heroine too. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't want those types of recommendations. But if you give me a softie where he's hard as fucking nails on the outside, but soft and sweet on the inside, and to her and to like his family, like say his grandmother, his mother, he treats like with respect. Yes, that's what I like to see. Mwah. That's what I like to see. That to me is good. So towards the end, there was a bit of a conflict and separation. I found it to be a bit over the top, you know, when it came to the separation, but it didn't diminish away from the love story. Like toward the end, I was like, what? Like, it was a little over the top for me. And I was like, oh, come on, you know, come on. This is what we're going to do as like a separation or, you know, oh man, that to me was just like, come on now. I was just like, what? It kept me engaged though. I will say the parts like toward the end did keep me going. And I was like, oh, no. We're not going to go and separate these two. You know, we're not going to go and like, come on, girl, think with your head. You know, like it was like, I was getting frustrated a little bit, like toward the end where I'm like, no. But it turned around for me and I was like, thank you. It was resolved quickly. I'll just say that. Like, we didn't linger in it. It was solved fairly quickly. So I'm glad for that. So that was the first book. So the second book was Craving Danger. So this one here, we have the characters of Franco Vitale, or I don't know if it's Vitale or Vitali, because it's Vitale. So I don't know if it's Vitali, like we have like extension of the E, or if it's Vitale, you know, like in the E silent. I don't know. Someone would have to tell, if you're Italian, someone would have to tell me, is it Vitale or Vitali? And then we've got Samantha Blakely. She's 26. Like I said, all of the guys are like older, women are younger. So the trope is masked man, boss and secretary, mafia, secret identity. The content warning is there's talk of former domestic abuse in here. Former branding, yeah. PTSD, talk of sexual assault, drugged, murder, torture, physical violence, panic attacks. This heroine had dealt with a lot in her past. I was just like, oh my God, just the sheer violence she dealt with. It's triggering. It is, I will say it is triggering because she talks of what happened to her in her past. It could be triggering for some people. I was like, I'd never dealt with any of that stuff, but I was like, oh my God, I was so, I wanted to hug her, you know, like I felt so bad for what she had went through. So Samantha works for Franco, I'm going to say Vitali as his personal assistant, and she hates working for him. He isn't a very nice person to her, and she's dealing with it the best way she knows how to. He owns several businesses, some legitimate, others illegal. including a place called Paradiso. It's an adult fantasy club, so he makes sure it runs smoothly and all of the participants are well taken care of. He also is a part of the Costa Nostra Mafia. So one night, Samantha goes to the club because she's dealt with a scary situation with her ex-boyfriend in the past, and it has made her not want to be close to a man. She has like PTSD from it. She's just getting her toes wet into the space when one of the men there does more than what she wanted, and it causes her to have a panic attack. She starts having a panic attack in the club. And Franco, he's been watching her. Like, he's seen that she joined the club, and he's been watching her with these cameras the whole time. And so when he sees her have this panic attack, he kind of goes into like hero mode, and he like wants to help her. So ever since Franco spots Samantha at his club, he's been keeping an eye on her. The club has video cameras everywhere, and once he sees her start to tense up in a room with another man, he knows he has to step in and help. So he decides to be the man who Samantha can talk to at the club. She has no idea it's her boss because he lowers his voice and is wearing a mask. He's wearing this, I can't remember the name of it. I think it started with a B, but I had looked it up. Like, what is this type of mask? And I looked it up. I'll show it like right here. So he was wearing this, so that's why she couldn't tell like who he was based on like the mask he was wearing. And then he also was lowering his voice. He wasn't sounding like he was like when he normally works with her. So that's why she wasn't able to recognize him. But she felt like this familiar pull to him. Like she felt like she knew him. So probably was because you know, she's around the man all the time. But there's something familiar about him though, and it makes her more comfortable to be around this masked man. So I really like this book. I loved how as soon as Franco found out that Samantha had a history of abuse from a former partner, he wanted to help her overcome her fears. He was patient and kind to her at the club, but you know, he acted like the same kind of like grumpy asshole at work. But even then he started to kind of like mellow out with her, where she was like, what's wrong with him? How come he's acting like differently now? It's because he found out like, you know, all the stuff about her. He ended up like investigating her and finding out like she lived in a different state, and she, you know, had abruptly left that state like very quickly and had come to, you know, where they were at. I think it's New York that they're in. I think it's New York. I think she had left from, I believe it was Texas. And I believe her family was originally from Washington State, I think. And so she had went to Washington, she lived in Washington State and then went to Texas, I guess, for a work or whatever it was. And there she met like her boyfriend. And she was dating him. And then things didn't work out with the boyfriend, you know, like I said, I don't want to go in too much because then I feel like I'm spoiling it. But I'll just say that he was not a good man. He was not a good man. I also loved how Franco got revenge for Samantha as well. Yes. I like what he did to the ex-boyfriend. I'll just say that. So the only downside to this book was I felt like towards the end it wrapped up pretty quickly. I felt like it was a pretty quick wrap up, and I was like, you know, it could have lingered a little bit more, you know, like you could have went just a little tiny bit more, you know. I said they got engaged pretty fast, and I was like, whew. I'm like, you know, dude, yeah, maybe date her a little bit, you know, for the fact that, you know, she has a history of abuse and things like that. So I almost felt like he could have maybe waited a little bit longer to like ask her to marry him, because of the fact that, you know, she's dealt with some things in her past, even though he took care of it. But still, be careful, you know, like be more, you know, careful with her. Even though I do think when it comes to abuse, whether mental, physical, that type of thing, you do have to not get over it, but, you know, because you're never going to get over it. That's something that you're never going to get over. You're always going to have those thoughts in the back of your head. But I think you have to push through it, move through that trauma. That I think is the only way that you're going to get back your power, is to move through that trauma, work through it, like say therapy, things like that. Like I definitely felt like the heroine needed therapy. She definitely needed therapy. Like she didn't tell her parents what went on. And I was like, girl, your parents would have been there for you, like mentally, at least mentally. They would have not known physically what it's like, but you can certainly have sympathy for somebody of the experience that they went through, and you can say that you'll be there for them to, if they need to talk things out, like you do talk therapy, things like that. I think doing that will especially like help you, for sure. Otherwise it's like you're still keeping yourself in that prison that person put you in, that the abuser put you in. You're keeping yourself in that prison. No, definitely get therapy, talk through it, talk through your trauma. That's the only way you're going to go and feel like you again. I had to go and talk to people about the things that I went through, in order for me to feel better. Even then, it's like you still think about, maybe if I could have said this better, or maybe I should have did this or that. You blame yourself. You very much blame yourself, and you're like, did I do something that could have caused this person to act the way they acted? Could I have acted differently? No. The bottom line is no. Anything would have set this person off. It doesn't matter whether it was you or someone else. Anybody would have set this person off. The fault is always the abuser, not the abused. They needed to go to therapy. That abuser needed to go to therapy and get his shit worked out. That person right there. With females too, there are females that can be abusers. They have to get their shit worked out, the stuff that's in their head, and they're taking it out on others. Like, whatever happened with me, it's not right for me to treat others the way I was treated, because then I'm the abuser. So for her, she definitely needed therapy. So the next book I read, I gave 4 stars to, was Hunted by a Shadow. So this is the 3rd book in that series. So we have Renzo Torrisi, he's 35, and Skylar Davies, she's 30. So a little bit closer in age. So this mafia, enemies to lovers. So we got the content warning of it's brutal and graphic violence. There's kidnapping. There's organ transplant. Loss of family members. Illegal organ harvesting. That was especially brutal reading. Stalking and spying. This one definitely has more of a horror element to it, because what happens to this person is messed up. It is beyond messed up. I'll just say that. Reading that, I was crying. I was crying reading this. This here was like very emotional. I was like multiple times brought to tears because of the content warnings in here. So Skylar has had a great life. She had her life in order. She had a great parents. Her stepdad adopted her when she was little. She has studied culinary arts and wants to work at a restaurant as a chef, when all of a sudden her and her mom get into a car accident and her mother dies. Then things go from bad to worse when she finds out that her kidneys are failing her. 3 years later, she's on the brink of death, going into renal failure. Desperate to save his daughter, her father pays a lot of money to go through the illegal organ harvesting process. Skylar gets a kidney donor just in time, and just when she is starting to get her life back on track and feeling like she has a second chance in life, her and her father are kidnapped by these mafia guys. So the leader, a man named Renzo, says that her kidney is his property. Then she finds out the truth of how her kidney was obtained, and she is horrified by it. Absolutely horrified. But also not knowing if she will continue to have a second chance at life or have her life ended based on her finding out that the organ that was, she thought was a donation was stolen from someone else who was still alive. Yeah. Brutal, man. That shit's brutal. It happens. It's not something I like to read about. It's not something I like to hear about because it is a disgusting, vile practice that you would go and you're basically kidnapping people to take their organs while they're alive. That's a disgusting practice. It's as bad as poachers going out and killing animals for, like, say, killing elephants for their ivory. Disgusting. Like, any of that is vile and disgusting to me, that you would do that to another life. So, like I said, this one here was definitely more emotional. Definitely got to me a lot more. Renzo is devastated to learn that his younger brother, Giulio, was murdered, and his kidney ended up going to a woman in a hospital. Furious, he decides to stalk and spy on her and her father by planting small cameras in their mansion and stalking Skylar from different places. He decides to stop playing games and ends up kidnapping her father, and the doctor who performed the surgery. What he didn't expect was for him to feel things for her. He realizes that she's innocent in all of this, and he starts to have feelings for her. He also, like, kidnaps her, and he's holding her, basically holding her until whatever amount of time, So this story was very emotional and heartbreaking, especially when you discover the underground world of illegal organ harvesting. It's a disgusting practice that ruins a lot of people's lives. I was thoroughly shocked and horrified, and I couldn't wait for Renzo to go on a killing spree to get these murderers. And that's essentially what they are. These people are murderers. They're butchers. Said what he does to some of them is brutal, but I did think the man who ran the business got off easy towards the end. I also did feel like Renzo fell in love with Skylar a little too quickly for my taste, but I still enjoyed this book. Also, I love the fact that instead of trying to have children, Renzo and Skylar decide to adopt children. So I said foster children need homes too. That was the thing, like, they wanted to have a family, but she said, because of, like, she had gotten that kidney, she's afraid to get pregnant, and, like, it could mess up possibly the kidney, anything that she got donated to her. And I was like, I can understand that. You don't want to get pregnant because it could mess up, like, something. Though I do think there are people who still are able to have children, even getting, like, a donation, a donated organ. But I can understand, like, her not wanting to. Like, she didn't want to take that chance. Completely understandable. Like, especially when you're on the brink of death. And all of a sudden, it's, like, just in the nick of time. She already made peace with her death. It was her stepfather that could not give her up. Like, he did not want to see her die. I understand the desperation behind the stepfather, because if you're a parent and your child just needs a healthy organ, I could see why he decided to go down the black market. I can understand his thinking. But you need to know, going down that, they're hurting other people by doing it. And he had no idea that, that was happening either. So you could tell, like, he felt a sense of guilt as well, in a way, because he essentially hurt someone else in order for his daughter to survive. But he was still grateful that his daughter was alive. You know, it's a horrible thing. This is why I'm like, I like the technology of like you hearing about more of I think it's stem cells and different things like that, or whatever. There was something else too. Can't remember the name of it, but it's like there's something else that they've been doing lately where there's a possibility that organ transplants can become like a thing of the past, to where, say if like your heart, something's wrong with your heart and you need like a heart transplant, they can essentially grow an organ for you that will be for you, you know, essentially be, you know, your heart that's made from like your DNA and all that stuff, different stuff. So I've heard of that. I don't know how advanced they are in it. Like, if, you know, in our lifetime we'll ever see that. It would be good though if we were able to have those advancements to where you don't have to rely on, you know, like someone to die in order for you to get a match, or say someone donating. Like I have myself like on a match registry just in case, like, say someone needs like bone marrow. I heard it's a painful process, but I probably would go through it. If it meant like saving someone's life, I will give my bone marrow to someone else if it means their life will be spared. But, you know, obviously I don't want to be on the registry of let's take this person's body and take all their organs and give them to other people. No. So I've kind of like changed things up a little bit when it comes to like, I don't have myself as a donor on my ID anymore, because that to me is almost like a red flag of like bad people. I prefer not to have my donor registry on my ID. I'd prefer not. It's to me, it's like too many bad people out there in the world, and I just don't trust people. But I did really like that, but it was, like I said, a very triggering book, because it talked about illegal organ donation, things like that, and it's just like, ugh. You know, like I said, it definitely felt like I had more of a horror element in it because of that. The next one I ended up reading, this is book number 4. So we got Drawn to Darkness. So this one here, the character Dario was the sweetest hero out of all of the guys. He was such a marshmallow, so sweet, so like devoted. So we got Dario LaRosa, he's 31, and Eden Taylor, she's 24. So we got the trope of mafia and class differences in here. So the content warning is drug-addicted parent, extreme poverty, gang violence, kidnapping, forced drugging, gun violence, human trafficking, physical abuse, and drug overdose in here. So I would say there is a lot of talk of drug overdose in here, or a parent that is an addict. So if you are triggered by that, I would say proceed with caution, because her mother is a drug addict, has been a drug addict for many years. So Eden has been taking care of herself for years. She was forced into that position because her mother is a drug addict. Eden basically doesn't want anything to do with her mother at all, but her mother keeps coming around to break into Eden's apartment and steal things to feed the mother's drug addiction. Eden works 2 jobs, and even with those 2 jobs, she struggles to pay her rent or her utilities. So her daytime job is as a waitress at a diner, and her nighttime job is as a janitor for a ballet studio. When she's on break, she takes time to dance after the studio is closed for the night. One night, while she is dancing, she runs across a handsome man staring at her. They both have an instant attraction. So Dario is mesmerized by this beautiful woman who dances so passionately, but every time he tries to talk to her or get her name, she disappears and gets away from him. He is a part of the Costa Nostra Mafia family, though his is more of a hacking and spying kind of position. He also has like sniper skills as well, but he's not into it as much as say the other guys are. So Eden plays a cat and mouse game until finally Dario catches her walking down the street and he asks her out on a date. So she kept like evading him, you know? So this is funny. I thought she was funny. I liked her. So I really like this story, and I think Dario is one of the sweetest heroes in the series, especially because he didn't care what her financial situation was. He also loved animals. So he found a stray dog that was abandoned outside, and he took the dog, bought her a bunch of things, and then brought the dog to his home. He also named the dog Bella. He first named the dog, what was it? Bellissimo or whatever it was. And then he shortened it to Bella. Because the other guy was like, she looks like a Bella to me. And he's like, oh, I'll name her Bella. I loved how he doted on Bella. It was adorable how much of a softie he was. It was so cute. He was so sweet. He was definitely the sweetest out of all of the guys. Not that any of the other guys weren't great either, but he was definitely the softest. He had the softest heart. I just loved it because he sees this dog in the cold, like I think it was gonna like snow soon, and he's looking like there's no tags on this dog. This dog is like chained up to like, I think it was like maybe a fire hydrant or something like that, and he was like, you know, saying like, hey, whose dog is this? You know, like, if nobody's claiming it, it's mine. And so he basically took the dog and he's like, yeah, it's mine now. And so he took the dog and obviously got it checked out and got it like, you know, all these like dog treats, and like he just went, it was like a man finding out he became a dad and he buys all this shit for the baby. It was basically that. He went and bought all of these things for the dog. It was the cutest thing. And I'm like, oh my God, if he does this with animals, he's going to be a great dad. Like, this guy's going to be a great dad. He's going to be so devoted to his children. And he was so sweet. I was like, oh my God, I love this guy. But yeah, he was so good with the dog. And that's what like helped with the heroine too. Like, you know, she saw like how devoted he was to the, like to getting this dog, and that kind of like I think helped melt her heart, because she was very much, the heroine was tough as nails. She had to be in that situation, like with her mother, the way her mother was. I love the relationship. Like, there was this neighbor called Tyrone that lived next door to her. I'm assuming the man was black. I'll just say that. I'm making the assumption. I'm assuming the man was black, because usually with the name Tyrone, I usually hear it from black people have the name. I don't usually hear white people having the name of Tyrone. I'll just say that. My ex, his middle name was Tyrone. So there was that. I said, where I could completely understand why Eden was so closed off because of all the things she dealt with when it came to her drug-addicted mother. I loved how Eden had a great relationship with her longtime neighbor, Tyrone. He thought of Eden as like his own daughter. And that to me was the sweetest thing. He was like, hey, you know, I made beef stew. You want some stew? I loved how he was so like cared for her. Like he saw her like grow up, you know, saw her like as a little girl, saw her grow up, and now he sees like her mother's a drug addict, her mother's an addict, steals from her, does all the things. So it's like, this man is like, he cares for this young lady, you know, he thinks of her as a daughter. And it's like, that's kind of like how I would feel like if I had a neighbor that was like really young, like, yeah, is old enough to be my kid. I would treat them like they were my own child, you know, and I'd be like, I need to take care of this person, you know, I need to make sure they're okay, they're getting fed, you know, they're paying their bills. I would feel like this motherly instinct come out and be like, are you okay? You need help with your bills? That type of thing. That's how I am. Like, I'm not that type of person where I'm a selfish person, where I know family members, my mother and my sister are very selfish people, and I don't like to be around them because of them being so selfish. Where I've always had a generous nature. That's why I think I had people have people take advantage of me, even my own family have taken advantage of me. They treat your kindness for weakness. But I loved how Tyrone was really devoted to her and wanted to make sure that she was safe, and especially like the neighborhood they lived in. It was obviously one of those very poor neighborhoods, like low income neighborhoods, and I would say the majority low income neighborhoods a lot of times happen in like the Black communities, things like that, Mexican communities, that type of thing. You'll see them a lot with those, with like more minority people, a lot, even though there are I'd say poor white neighborhoods too, but I'd say you'll see white people in the poor neighborhoods where maybe the majority of those people are probably Black and Hispanic. Usually that's the case. I've lived in a more not great neighborhood, like down the street from me is a not great neighborhood. I live there because my grandmother had bought a house years ago when it was just a regular, stuff. But because the prices of things have become so expensive, those neighborhoods went more low income. So you had more shootings in that neighborhood, things like that. So it wasn't, like you're not walking around at night down those neighborhoods. I'll just say that. You're not walking down those neighborhoods at night. Some neighborhoods have gotten better. There's certain cities that are close to me that have gotten better. Probably because of gentrification, though. I'll just say that. They've done gentrification and kind of pushed some other people out of those neighborhoods, which isn't good. So I will say, like, I didn't know the race of this guy, Tyrone. So I'm making the assumption. I don't know, like, I think with some authors, they need to, like, I don't know, explain it a little bit more. Like, this man's African, African American, this man's Black. You could say, like, mocha skin, that type of thing, There has to be, ebony skin, that type of thing. And also, I felt like the heroine, Eden, I believe she was mixed race, like she was biracial. I believe she was biracial because the hero was talking about how she had tan skin. Normally, you don't have tan skin when it comes to white people. White people were usually peach colored. So the way he said she had tan skin, and it kind of almost made it sound like she was a little bit darker skinned than him. And so that's why I was like, she's biracial. I believe she's biracial. So there's different mixtures when it comes to biracial. You kind of have biracial children who have like really light colored hair. It depends on like what's the more dominating factor when it comes to the genes. Like with my children, they have lighter hair color than mine. Their hair color is a lighter brown than mine. Mine's more of like, mine looks more black now, but it's like dark brown. When I was younger though, my hair color was a lighter brown. So I think as they get older, their hair color might darken up as they get older. Like when they get into like their 20s, 30s, their hair might darken up more. It usually happens with blondes too. Usually like when you're a young blonde, you could be really blonde. And then as you get older, your hair starts to darken up and you're not as blonde as you were. Like my husband's hair has darkened up. He's a blonde. His hair darkened up as he got older. Same thing with like, I think some redheads too. Some redheads end up like, over time, their hair may darken up as they get older. I prefer more of a darker red than the bright orangey red. That really stands out and you're like, pooh, pow, So with this one here, that was my assumption, was that she was biracial and the neighbor, like I said, I'm pretty sure he was Black. He was a Black guy. But he worked in construction. And I really liked him. He was very, he was very protective of her. Like I said, he thought of her as a daughter, and I loved that aspect to it. I almost thought, like, for a minute, like, is he her dad? Like, you know, but I was like, no, he would have said he was her father. So I'm thinking, like, because the mother was, you know, all times when you're an addict and stuff, you pretty much feed your habit in any way that you can. So if it means that you prostitute yourself, you know? So I think that's probably what happened there. It didn't go into detail. Like, we didn't know, like, who her father was. There was no mention of her father. Oh, come on. Now this freaking thing isn't working for me. I hate when that happens. All right. So the last book in that series was God of Vengeance, was book number 5. I liked this one less than all the other ones. All of them I liked, except for this one. This one here, I was not a huge fan of it. So we got Damiano Falco, he's 38, and Gabriella Di Bella, she's 23. So the content warning is graphic extreme violence, abuse, kidnapping, death of a loved one, trauma, PTSD, and torture. So he is the capo de capi of the Cosa Nostra. So he's basically the head honcho. So there's Carlo. That's Damiano's guard and best friend. He's in here. We got Mrs. Falco. She's blind due to abuse from her husband. And we've got Mrs. Accardi, which is Carlo's mother. So they all live with Damiano. So Gabriella has been raised to wed into the mafia. She has been treated horribly by her family. Like, her whole family sucks. Her whole family sucks ass. Her whole life been treated like, you know, like she's going to be the one to, like, help the family by, you know, just marrying her off. We don't give a shit about her. And I'm like, oh, wow, these people suck. She's about to be married to Stefano, but he needs to get his cousin's approval before they get married. When Damiano comes to Italy, he sees Gabriella and decides that he will have her marry Dario instead. Now, this is taking place around the same time that Dario has met Eden in the previous book. This is around the same time. So Damiano takes Gabriella to New York, where he lives in a mansion on Skull Island with his mother. There, Gabriella and Damiano get to know each other and end up falling for each other instead. So the longer she's there in the house and, like, doing, like, you know, kind of like wifely things, like she likes to do things, she likes to cook, she likes to do this and that and all that stuff. She likes to hang out with the older ladies, you know. I thought that was very sweet that she liked to hang out with his mother and what was it? Carlo's mother. I thought it was very sweet. They're very sweet. But it just, there was things that made me sad in it and made me cry. And I didn't like. So I said, unfortunately, this book didn't land for me. I had several issues with this book. One, I felt like it was more lust-based than the couple falling in love. I definitely felt like it was more lust-based with the hero falling for the heroine. With Damiano, I felt like he very much lusted after her rather than falling for her. When Damiano takes Gabriella's virginity, I didn't like how he was so careless of her inexperience, and it just made me very uncomfortable reading those scenes. He was not gentle with her when it came to, like, her virginity. I didn't like that. I didn't like how he was not more gentle with her. I felt like he was a little too rough, and it just, even though she was, you know, into it too, I would have preferred if he was nicer. Like, just because this person portrays themselves as hard as nails on the outside, it doesn't mean that they have to be heartless on the inside, especially when it comes to their lady. Like, all the other men were tough as nails in the series, but they were soft for their women. I didn't understand why the capo wasn't the same way. I really didn't care for him treating her that way when it came to, obviously it got better, but still I was like, eh. I didn't really, I really dislike that. I really dislike that. And the story honestly bored me. It was too much of like the previous book's elements with the last book. And I was like, separate this. We need to separate this, you know? I really just didn't care for this one. So I ended up giving it a 3 because I was like, there was a lot to be desired when it came to this last book. And then there was some people who died that I didn't want die. I did not want dying, and I was upset. And I was like, this is bullshit. I was mad. I was mad. The author made me mad with this. But I will continue on with her other Mafia series. I do like Michelle Hurd. I just think this was just one of those books where it just didn't work for me. But I liked the whole series. I thought it was really good. So the last book I'm going to talk about, because this is a way too long video. Last book I'll talk about that I read this month. This was okay. I'll say I'm not sure if I want to read any more from this author because this was okay. So this is Bump in the Night by Cassie Mint. This is Hot and Haunted, book number 1. Now, she's, I think, one of those authors where she does a lot of novellas. I don't think she does long stories. She does a lot of short stories. She very much reminds me of, I think it was Jessa Kane, or I think it was. There was another author that would do like these short stories. They always would do novellas. They never did long stories. I think Cassie Mint's another one where she does very short stories, and I'm not always a fan of novellas. They have to be done right in order for me to really enjoy them. If you rush the characters too quickly for them to do bow chicka wow wow, it can kind of ruin it for me. So we got Penny and Arthur. She's a virgin heroine. The hero is 12 years older than her. So Penny is a maid working at Hennigan Hall, which is a haunted hotel. Kind of reminds me of like the Stanley Hotel. Other employees have had paranormal encounters except for her. While she's cleaning the walls of this room, it looked like it was blood that ran down the walls. She meets Arthur, who is a pretty famous horror author. Their attraction is instant. Arthur invites Penny to his room late at night to see if Penny will finally see some paranormal activity. And this novella was okay. It felt too insta-love for my taste, and that's what it did. It felt too insta-lovey for me, because as soon as he saw her, he was like, you know, he has feelings for her, and I was like, dude, that's way too quick. Like, I could see, like, you have, like, lust for her, or, like, infatuation. You know, like, infatuation can get, like, confused with love. You could certainly have that, but I was like, dude, way too quickly. He was like, oh, if I leave, you know, I won't see her again. And I'm like, there's always, like, you know, I don't know, long distance relationships, writing to her, that type of thing. You know, let it, like, simmer a bit, you know. So I felt like it was too quick of them getting together and all of that stuff. So yeah, it was a 3 for me. It was okay. And like I said, I'm not sure if I want to read any more from that author. I might give her another chance, because there were some Jessa Kanes I read. I believe that was the author, Jessa Kane. There was some books from that other author that I really liked that were novellas, and then some that didn't work for me. So yeah, for this one here, it could be just a one-off. I'll have to try maybe reading one more, since they are novellas. They are very, very quick reads. I may give her another chance just to see. But if it's the same way, then I'm like, this author is just not for me. So that is all I've read this month. I am currently reading Seeing Red by Bailey Hanna. This is a Wells Ranch novel. This is book 2, actually. I'll have to go back and see if I can get through book 1 and book 3. But this one here, I'm about 31% in. I'm really enjoying it so far. But that'll obviously be something I talk about in October that I read, because I'm probably not going to get done with it until October. I'm really enjoying it. I'll just say I love, one of my favorite tropes is like accidental pregnancy, and that's what we have here. It was a one-night stand, turns into accidental pregnancy. I love the hero. He's just so sweet, because he's obviously had a crush on her for years, and when she finally obviously gives him like a chance to like get with her, you know, they used the condom, but obviously either the condom broke or maybe it didn't work, whatever it is. Usually I'm thinking it was probably expired, you know, because I mean, if it doesn't work, you know, come on. Most times I would say 100% condoms work. If it's not working, is maybe you didn't put it on correctly and it could have slipped off inside her, or it was expired and it could have like broke. That happens. If you're not using the proper condom, like say if you're bigger, you should be using magnums. If you're smaller, do not use magnums because they'll fall off of you. You have to use regular size. So, I mean, you have to find the proper condom for you to wear on your peen to make sure it doesn't fall off, break, that type of thing. Otherwise, you're impregnating a lot of chicks, or you're getting a disease. So, for guys, it's like a shoe. You have to find the perfect fit, you know? So, I don't know what happened, but she got preggers. And so now he's, you know, being there for her during the pregnancy. So it's sweet. It's sweet. I like it so far. I'm hoping the author does not annoy me. Because the heroine, I'll just say, there's certain scenes where the heroine annoys me. And I'm like, girl, stop being this way. Stop being this way. Knock it off. Especially because she's the one that decided to have a one-night stand with this guy. So it's like, your fault too, honey. Yeah. Well, I'll say so far I am enjoying it, but the heroine is definitely eating at me a little bit, where I'm like, girl, no. Calm down. Yeah, I do like the hero, though. I do like the hero. The hero he's sweet. Like, you know, he obviously has, like, issues from his past and stuff, but he's really sweet. I like him a lot. But yeah, that's it for this video here. What did you read this month that you really enjoyed? Let me know down in the comment section. But yeah, I'd say like this reading month I had was pretty good. It was toward the middle of the month, I started DNFing stuff. And I was like, I wasn't feeling it. But for the most part, I'd say most of this month, I have been enjoying my books. And then something happened this month that kind of like saddened me. There was an incident that happened September 10th, and it really kind of like saddened me and just made me weep for the future. I'll just say that. Weep for the future and look at humanity in a completely different way. And I don't understand people sometimes. I really don't. I really don't. And how people can get into a bubble and not look at humanity. So I'll just say that. So that kind of like messed up my reading a little bit. Not that, you know, my reading is more important than what happened to, you know, what happened. But I was doing a lot of crying this month. I'll just say that, you know, just a lot of crying too. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for this video here. Hopefully October is a good month for me when it comes to my reading. I am going to attempt to read some horror and some other types of stuff that is not what I normally read. Like, obviously, 99% of what I read is like romance. So I did pick up a cozy mystery that I wanted to read. That is The Golden Girls. And I wanted to get into that in October. I'm really hoping that my brain can like have me read it, and get into it. Same thing for like, there's a couple of horror books I want to read. They're kind of short reads, they're not very long. So I was trying to see if I can get through those. So that way I'm like, reading something a little bit more spookier for the month of October, and go from there. Obviously I will do more, my palette cleansers, which are going to be my romances. I'll probably do those in between, because, like I said, I'm not a huge horror fan when it comes to books. I don't mind horror movies, but it depends on what they are. I like more psychological horror, like say things like Seven, things like that, than grotesque horror or gory horror. I don't like all the blood stuff. It's not, I'm not really a big fan. And I love Halloween. I love spooky season. I'm kind of desensitized to stuff though, because if somebody jumps out at me, I'm usually kind of like, I have more of like, I'm prepared, because it's like, especially at that night, people are trying to scare you. So it's like my alertness is kind of like, goes off more. So it's, people are less likely to scare me. But, my daughter the other day, what came up behind me, and I turned around, she was right there, and I was like, oh, girl, she does that deliberately to scare me. She does it deliberately. She thinks it's funny. My eldest is a jokester. She thinks it's funny to scare people. She thinks it's funny to do pranks. She's a jokester. She's always been a jokester ever since she was little. She was the baby with 1,000 facial expressions. She would always do funny faces, even when she was younger. This is how she's always been ever since she was little. She's been a comedian since birth. So she loves to do that now to me. And I'm just like, girl, one of these days, you better watch it. I'm going to come up swinging. You better back away. So I kind of like do this to her, like, you're going to get it, girl. You're cruising for a bruising. But she loves to do that, It loves to scare me or tease me, and I'm like, I'm the one that's buying you stuff, girl. I could go and just take stuff away. That's what you want to do. You want to play games with me. That's what's going to happen. But anyways, that's it for this video here. Have yourselves a good day. Take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, and I'll see you all on the next video. All right, bye.